So yeah, we got there and we got to General Assembly and we stood outside and had a rally with some of our supporters, and then we all marched in together, and the second that we were in the door, we were surrounded by security guards, and they followed us all the way up to the big golden doors that we were protesting in front of, and we stood there for, I want to say, about an hour, and we sang and we prayed and we chanted until the police came out with bullhorns and told us if we didn't leave within 5 minutes we'd be arrested. And we kept singing, and then they started arresting us one by one. Every couple of minutes they'd peel another person off, and I was actually the second to last to get arrested. It was the two students and the woman in the wheelchair who they left standing alone for a while. They took us into the elevator and made us stand with our foreheads against the wall until they filled up the elevator, and they took us down to the basement and into the secret room, and we sat there for a while. Then they loaded us into a paddy wagon, and we all had on our zip ties, and like some folks had them in the front, some had them in the back, and we sat in the paddy wagon for about an hour. They drove us over to the jail, and then we just sat there and just kind of sweated. It was hot, and it was they wanted to make us wait for a while. And then we went into the jail and spent 7 hours being processed.
And were the spirits high? Were people upset? Like, what was it like being with people who were also arrested?
Everybody was very calm and happy to be there, and I think everybody felt like we were doing the right thing and we were speaking out for people who couldn't speak out for themselves, and so we were all very happy to be there. We actually spent a lot of time in the jail singing spirituals and old movement songs, singing it for each other and for the officers and for the other people who were there in the jail with us.
Was there any point where you just felt like, oh, what did I get myself into? Was that your first time?
Yeah, it was my first time being arrested. I'm just 18, and I'm a freshman in college, you know, and you always hear about people having kind of their crazy activist phase when they get there, but I didn't expect I'd get arrested just my second semester being in school. But yeah, there were times when I was sitting there, they'd put my handcuffs on extremely tightly because they said my wrists were too little and they needed to, so like I had like kind of cuts and welts and on my wrist from where those had been, and I was just sitting there and just saying, oh my God, why am I here? What did I do? I want to leave, but then everybody was keeping each other calm and, like I said, singing and praying together, so those moments came and then they went again. Sorry.
You say amen when you get ready.
Amen. So I told my friends and my family that I was doing this so that I can have a future, so that my sister can have a future, so that when we are in college and beyond that, we will be able to vote and we will be able to control who is representing us as people. Because right now, these people don't represent us, and they're not passing laws that represent us as a people. And they're scared of our vote because they know that it's young people and people of color and immigrants who elected the first president that doesn't look like them. Yes. And so that is why I got arrested on Monday. Thank you. I think that when we use our bodies to express discontent with the state of affairs in North Carolina, they have to punish us physically in some ways, to teach us a lesson and keep us from doing it again. Like Brian, who is the other student who was arrested, we were treated much more harshly than the other people who were older. I think they feel that there's still hope for us and there's still time to change our minds about these things. And like I said, they separated the men from the women, and the adults were allowed to stand near each other and to talk. But if Brian and I stood up, we stood up once and we were yelled at within 15 seconds, while other folks spent like up to an hour standing there and talking to one another. When we tried to speak to one another, it was an instant, like an instant slap on the wrist. They didn't want the youth hanging out in jail.
Is your body going to remember the feeling of being physically punished when you think about going to another protest?
Yes, but that's not going to stop me. It's something that I'm not going to forget, and it's something that I'm still processing, and that I think I'm going to be processing for a long time. And I actually have a history of abuse, and so it's something that's very real to me, and but suffering through that is something that is also very powerful, and it's very powerful for other people to see young people being willing to put their bodies and their safety on the line. And I, like I said, I had scratches, I had welts, I had words imprinted into my wrist actually from the inside of the handcuffs that they put on me, and I took pictures, and I put it on the internet, and I showed my friends, and I was like, this is what they do to you, and don't let it stop you, because I want people to know what they expect when they go into that, but I don't want it to cause fear or to prevent them from doing what's right.
What did your friends say?
They were very supportive. Actually, the support that I've received from my friends and my family and just my community as a whole, even strangers, have been sending me Facebook messages and emails thanking me. And the other prisoners inside the jail, they thanked us, and we prayed for some of the officers, and they thanked us. Like, it was just the support I've received from everybody has been overwhelming. And my mom was worried about me, and my partner was worried about me, but they were also proud of me.
So would you say that, partly because you were with religious people and they were singing, did it feel like a spiritual experience?
It did, and I'm not religious. It's still, there was comfort in the fact that everybody was singing and praying together, and that all of these folks came together because they believed in something so great and so much bigger than any of us. And I was raised Christian, and I had moved away from the church at a very early age, but it felt like an experience almost that could bring me back to that. It was very healing.
Wow. So before you decide to participate in the action, what made you say, okay, things are so bad that I have to do this? Like, what drove you to that moment?
So my little sister is adopted, and she's Black, and she's mentally ill, and she receives a lot of benefits from the government. And I grew up working class. I grew up without health insurance, and I have a full ride to state. Right now I'm not paying a cent to be there, and in the future that's going to catch up with me with the loans. But I started seeing a government who not only was passing laws to keep me out of the university, to keep my sister from getting the health care that she desperately needs. She's diabetic. Trying to keep my family out of that. They're also trying to keep my family from voting. And that was a breaking point for me because, like I said, I'm just 18. I actually have never voted before. I turned 18 just a few days after the presidential election. And the idea that they were working to keep me from exercising that right made me realize that, whatever they do to keep me from doing that, they can't stop me from engaging in civil disobedience.
And where are you from?
I'm from Chapel Hill.
Chapel Hill. And so when you say you grew up working class and without health care, so do you feel like you kind of always known that there were people who had money and had the power? Did you have this kind of political awareness growing up?
Yeah, I very much did. And I was lucky. My community is not working class. My mother worked for an Episcopal church that has historically been wealthier. And so I had this great supportive community who was going to make sure that nothing happened to my family and was going to make sure that nothing happened to me for lack of money. But that made me hyper aware of the privileges that the people around me had. And growing up with a sister of another race made me very aware of white privilege from a young age. I remember when I was 5 realizing that that we were treated very differently even in preschool. So I've always very much been politically aware of these kinds of things, but it hasn't been until I got to college that I was able to get more involved because I worked 3 jobs throughout high school, so now I have the ability to not work. I have financial aid and I can participate more fully in these things.
So after this new state government came into power, I mean, you knew, no one had to really explain it to you, you knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And how would you describe what they're doing?
What they're doing is really just an attack on a lot of people in North Carolina. It's attack on the working class, attack on people of color, attack on the queer community, attacks on women. They're, like Reverend Barber said, it's an avalanche of regressive policies, and they are just outright stripping people of their rights.
And now that you've gone through this experience, are you ready for kind of the next stage of it? Are you ready for more?
Yeah, I am. I'm definitely not going to get arrested for a little while, at least until my charge is clear, but I'm ready to continue being engaged and to continue fighting back. And I work with several youth and student organizations who are doing this kind of work, and I'm going to continue to be engaged in it for as long as I possibly can.